All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here this time. If you have your handout in front of you, that would be handy, the one that I emailed out. And then, as always, if you try to have your Shawnee booklet, and as I said, we'll want to have a psalter in front of you. And I'd actually like to start today with a little bit of review or a little bit of practice just to get our wheels turning again. And I'd like somebody to pick a random psalm. It doesn't have to be random. Pick a psalm out of the psalter. Anybody? Just shout one out of the blue book.
100D.
100D. Okay. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer. We're going to do 5 of these to get started with. And what I'd like you to do is to tell me what note the first note is. Just the first note. You don't have to tell me anything about the key or anything like that. Just tell me what the first note is. Tell me how many beats in a measure, and then what beating pattern you would do for that pattern. So just 3 things: the first note, the name of the first note, and how many beats in a measure, and what pattern you would do for that one. Anybody want to take a shot at it?
It's an E.
It's an E. Okay, thank you. So, and if you're having trouble with learning the notes, names of the notes, remember it's on page 6 of your Shawnee booklet. Okay, it starts on an E. That's good. And then the time signature there, you see it says 2/4. So how many beats in the measure?
2 beats.
2 beats, right? Always look at that top number. And what would be the beating pattern? You don't even have to say it. You can just do it, right? Down, up. Down, up. Make a joyful noise, shout to the Lord, all the earth, right? Just up and down. Okay. And as we look at these, hopefully this is a reminder that what we're doing today, we're studying a lot of music stuff today, but hopefully this is a reminder that we're doing this because we want to sing the Word of God. And by learning this, you're able to help other people sing these perfect words together. So sing about making a joyful noise. All right. Let's turn the page to 101A. Again, sorry if you don't have an American Psalter in front of you, but Psalm 101A. Who can tell me the first note there? What's the name of that? What'd you say?
D.
A D, that's correct. Okay, so the first note's a D, and then what's the time signature? It says 4/4, so how many beats
4/4
per measure?
You get 4 beats per measure.
4 beats per measure. And what's the pattern for 4 beats? That's right. Down, in, out, up. Down, in, out, up. So that would be of loyalty and justice I raise my voice in song. Right? So you see that's that 4 beats that we talked about last time. Okay, let's turn the page again. And what about 102A? 102A, can anybody tell me what the first note is? For 102?
G sharp.
G sharp, yes. So if the idea of sharp doesn't make any sense to some of you, we're going to review that today. G sharp, right? It's a G, but it's actually G sharp. Then how many beats per measure? 3, Liz has given us a 3, right? 3 because it's 3/4. You see the top number there in 3/4. That tells you 3 beats. And what's the pattern for 3/4? Okay, down, out, up, right? Down, out, up. Down, out, up. So it would be, to this my prayer, oh listen, Lord, and let my cry for help reach you. In time of grief, hide not your face, and so on and so forth, right? So you get that we've already had 2, 3, and 4. That's good. This is I didn't even plan that. So that's your 3 pattern. Notice also that we'll be talking about emotion in Psalms later, and you'll notice we had a psalm of joy and rejoicing in 100. We have a psalm of grief in Psalm 102. So lots of different emotions in the Psalms. Okay, let's turn the page again to 102B. We'll just go ahead on to 102B. Who can tell me what the first note is on 102B?
G.
A G, right? Okay, so that's a G. And how many beats in the measure?
3.
3 again, right? And we just did this, but what's the pattern for 3?
Down, out, up.
Right, down, out, up, right? So it's my days like evening shade extend. Right? Okay, let's do one more. Let's see if I can find... See, the good news is I'm looking for a 6/8, and they're not actually that common.
We had a 6/4 this morning, which was interesting.
Did you? How did it go?
I tried to do it in 2, but people thought it was too hard to follow.
Okay.
So that's cool.
Interesting. Was it? Okay. Well, maybe some advice from me you should ignore. But yes, 6/4 is designed to be sang a little more slowly than 6/8, so that's a tough one. So 149A. If you flip over to 149A, who can tell me what the first note is on 149A?
It's an A.
It's an A. Yep. So that's an A. And how many beats in the measure?
6.
6. And this is kind of a trick answer, but then how do you do the pattern? How did I teach you to do the pattern for 6?
2
Right.
beats.
2 beats, right? Simeon's doing it for us. Liz has got it there, right? Okay, so down, up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be praise the Lord, hallelujah. Sing the Lord a new song. Right? So that's one way to do 6. So I'm curious if the 6/4 wasn't working well, Alice. Is it Alice? Is that right? If the 6/4 wasn't, what did you end up doing? Did you switch to something else, or how did it go?
I think we just did it in... I just kept conducting it in 2, but afterwards people were like, well, that was kind of slowish and hard to follow.
Okay.
And it was dragging a little bit.
Okay. Gotcha.
What song was it?
It was, shoot. It was, hold on. I don't have my bulletin around.
That's okay. As soon as you need to
It
remember
was
it.
28A.
28. Okay. Yeah, that's a tough one because that's 28A. That's a slower one. I actually will admit I've led that one in 3, which I told Simeon not to do last week. I said not to do it that way, but you go.
Okay, I thought the rhythm was a little weird to do it in 3, but like it was too short notice to try.
Yeah, so that's a tough one. You'll find that a lot of the things that I've told you are a good rule of thumb, and
Yeah.
you're just gonna
I
have
think
to.
that one actually would have been okay. It would have been okay if I conducted in 6. Like with
That's true with this way.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. That would have worked too. So, well, interesting. I'm happy if you guys if some of you are presenting right now and you have questions or feedback, things that you're working through week to week, please don't hesitate to mention them. Okay, just wanted to do some practice like that to start with. If you have your handout in front of you, we're going to work on sharps, flats, and naturals first today. Okay. So far, we have learned all notes that have a letter associated with them, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. For some reason, I skipped E in my list of letters there on your handout, but E exists too. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. But those are only 7 of the notes that we sing in between an A and an A. Right? In an octave is what we call it, when you get from one letter to where it repeats again. Those lettered notes are only 7 of those notes. And there are some other extra notes in there. You can see this on the piano keyboard. So I have a keyboard graphic there for you. But the idea here is you have those black keys on the piano that go in between those lettered notes, right? So you have there's a black key in between F and G, and then a black key in between G and A, and a black key between A and B, and so on from there on out. And so the way that so we call those white keys, or the notes with a letter on them, we call those the naturals. So an A natural, B natural, C natural, D natural. And then we call those in-between notes, the way we write those in-between notes is by using a flat or a sharp, right? So again, this is something a lot of you know, maybe all of you know, but you have used the sharp symbol or the flat symbol. And the sharp symbol tells you to sing the note that's just a little bit higher than the letter, okay? So if you have a sharp symbol, you see in the example there, it's a D sharp. That means that, here, we'll put it up here so we can see it a little better maybe. So we have a D up here. And if we have a D sharp, with that sort of hashtag symbol, that tells you to sing it actually a little bit higher than a regular D, right? And so if it's on a piano, you don't play the D note, you actually play the black key just to the right of it. But another way to write that same note is to do an E like this, and then put a flat symbol on it. Sort of this funny looking pointy B, right? And that flat symbol tells you to go down a little bit, right? So it's because the black keys don't have their own names, or those notes in between don't have their own names, you have to come at them from one way or the other. You either talk about it as a D sharp in this case, or an E flat. It's actually the same, functionally the same note for what we're doing. And so you need to know what those symbols mean when you come across them. You won't see a ton of those in the music that we use in the Psalter, but it's important for you to know what those things mean. There's also then the natural symbol. And the natural symbol, we'll put it out here. The natural symbol looks like this. And I like, in my head, I don't know if this makes any sense to anybody else, but it looks kind of like you lopped off part of the sharp. I don't know if that helps anybody else, but it looks like you took off a bunch of the things sticking off of the sharp symbol. But anyway, however you remember what that looks like, that's the natural symbol. And what that tells you is it gets rid of the previous sharp or flat that was on that same note. It tells you to go back to the natural, right? So if we've had a measure like this, if these are in the same measure, and you have a D sharp and then you see a D natural like this, that's telling you normally the sharp and the flat stays in effect for the whole measure. I didn't say that already, but I should have said that. The sharp and the flat stays in effect for the whole measure, but if you have a natural, then it cancels out that sharp that you had. So this tells you, last time you sang this note, it was a D sharp, but this time you're going to sing it as a D natural. So I said there on the page, those sharps, flats, and naturals remain in effect on that note until the end of the measure, and then it defaults back to the key, to whatever that note is in that key signature, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So just a little bit more on music notation. If you see these symbols, this is sharp, which means sing a little higher. This is flat, which means sing a little lower. And this is natural, which means go back to the regular, the white key on the piano, if you're used to looking at a piano. Any questions about sharps, flats, and naturals so far? Okay. Now, one of the places that you're going to see those symbols in the psalm book is in the key signature. And the key signature is, if you turn to page 6 of your Shawnee booklet, your page 6 in the Shawnee booklet gives you a whole list of all of the major key signatures. We're going to deal with minors next week. Don't worry about them yet. We're looking at major key signatures right now. But if you look in the Psalter, right next to your treble clef, you're going to have you're going to have some sharps or flats most of the time. Okay, so what did we start with? We started with 100D doesn't have a... Okay, so in 101A that we looked at... Oh wait, that's a minor. That's not good. 102A. Let's go to 102A. It has 4 sharps there. You see right at the beginning, right next to the treble clef, it has these 4 sharps. And those sharps aren't right next to notes, right? When I just was talking about sharps and flats, I said it's right next to the note that you need to sing higher or lower. They're just hanging out there by themselves, right? They're just out there at the beginning of each staff. And if you look down the page then, if you have 102A in front of you or any psalm, it'll have, in most cases, it'll have that same set of sharps or flats on every staff as you go down the page, right? And so each of them has these 4 sharps. In 102A, it has 4 sharps all the way down the page. And that tells you that for that tune, every time you sing a note that lines up with this sharp here, you don't actually sing a G, you sing a G sharp. Anytime you sing a C, you don't sing a C, you actually sing a C sharp. Anytime you sing a D, you sing a D sharp. And so it's a way of saying, sort of saying all through this tune, those particular notes are going to be sharps, so those particular notes are going to be flats. And the idea behind this is that I don't know how much of this music theory we can get into, but the basic idea is for every note that you start on, there's this particular combination of sharps, flats, or naturals that give you the major scale or the minor scale. So we're just dealing with majors right now. The major scale is what we're probably most used to hearing, which is you just go da 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 da. And to get those notes starting on any particular note, you need a particular combination of sharps and flats to make that work. So for the key, this is the key of E major. So for the key of E major, you need to go E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. And so that's what this is telling you. This is telling you that you have to go, this is telling you that those notes most of the time in that tune that you're singing are actually going to be, if you sing a C, it's going to be a C sharp. If you sing a D, it's going to be a D sharp. What's maybe more important for us right now as presenters is the idea that this tells you the key that you're singing in, which gives you a sense of why you're starting on the note you're starting on. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But if you look at your Shawnee booklet, the good news is you don't actually have to memorize every single key signature, just straight up memorization. There are some tricks that will help you learn, will help you know what key it is. So if you notice there on page 6 of the Shawnee booklet, he says for sharp keys, you take the rightmost sharp, okay, so the sharp all the way on the right, and you go up a half step. You go up a little bit, just up a half step, and that tells you what key you're singing in. So for example, we've got E major here, right? I've told you, I already gave you that. It's 4 sharps. But what you do is you take this sharp, and you see it's on this line here, but if you go up a half step, you go just up to this space here from the D sharp, that tells you that we're in the key of E. So let's do this with, let's see, if I erase this sharp, okay, so we just got 3 sharps. You could just look at your list of key signatures in the booklet that would tell you what key it's in, but let's try the sharp trick, okay? So it's G sharp. So what's a little bit higher than G sharp?
A.
A, right? And if you look on your key signature list on page 6, that's A has 3 sharps, right? Okay, what if we add a few more here? Okay, so we go, put this one back on there. And then we go with, what do we got? We need an A sharp too. Okay, 5 sharps, which is terrible to play on the piano. So this is your far right sharp, right? So what, if we go up a little bit from A sharp, what do you get?
B.
B, right? So 5 sharps is B. Okay, what if we erase all but 1 sharp here, okay? So we just have this, here, I'm going to rewrite it, it's kind of ugly. Here we go. Just 1 sharp, way up here on the F. So we have 1 sharp and it's F sharp. If we go a little bit up from F sharp, what do we get?
G.
G, right? So this is a good trick for sharps. I hadn't heard of this trick until I had Ron's booklet. So this is a handy one. If you're in a major key, we'll get into minors next week, and it's gonna ruin everything. But if you're in a major key, then go to the far right sharp and go up a half step. Just go up a little bit from that far right sharp. Okay. Now what about flats? If you need to tell what note or what key a flat key signature
That trick's
is.
a little easier.
Yes, flats are easier. This is the trick I've used for a long time. The trick with flats is you go to the next to the rightmost flat, and that's your key. Okay? So let's say we have, we'll do 3 flats here. We need this one, and this one, and this one. Okay? So we have 3 flats. If we go to the far right, then that's this one, but then we want to go back 1 from the far right, right? And so the key is, I don't know if you can see what I'm actually writing on the board, but if we have 3 flats and we start on the right and then we go to the middle one, we go 1 over, what key is? E flat, that's right. Okay, what if we add another flat? I think it's a D flat, is that right? Yes. Okay, so we add another flat, so there's 4 flats now. Now which key is it?
A flat.
A flat, right? Because you go to the next from the right flat, and that tells you which key it's in. Okay, so we could add another one. We'll put a flat down here on G, right? So if we've got 5 flats and we go 1 over from the right, what key are we in?
D flat.
D flat, that's right. Okay, so those are really handy tricks. As I've said before, if you're struggling with this, I guess 2 things if you're struggling with this. 1, bare minimum, all you need to do is give people a starting note. Okay, we'll get into why we're talking about key signatures and all that stuff. I think this is really important and helpful, but bare minimum, if you just give them a starting note, that's a good thing. So don't get overwhelmed if this is too hard. But also, if you're really struggling with this, I really recommend just cut out this part of your booklet or shrink it down somehow, stick it into the front of your psalter that you carry with you and use that psalter, and you can just refer to it if you need to. That's going to be a lot easier than panicking in the moment, even if it just helps to know that you have it there. Sometimes the panic is what gets you in trouble, not the actual lack of knowledge or experience. It's you get too worked up and then you can't do it right. So even just to have it there as a backup might be enough to help you be more confident about it and go ahead and do it. So those
if you have 1 flat, it's in F, and I learned that just because 1 flat, which sounds like it's F, it starts in F.
Oh yeah, right? Okay, so that's handy. Thank you. So yes, good point. So if we take away all these flats and you just have 1 flat, then my trick doesn't work for you, right? As Maria's pointing out, there's just 1 flat, so you can't go to the next one. But as Maria's pointing out, this is helpful. There's just 1 flat, right, with a good F sound, and that's the key of F. So that's one you're going to see the key of F a lot. But that's one, that's a good trick. Thank you, Maria. I hadn't heard that before.
And also, I find it really helpful to write, in every psalm I've ever led, I write the key signature just at the top of what key it's in.
Yes.
Because I can look at a letter a lot quicker than I can figure out what it is.
Yes, that's working smarter, not harder. So That's part of my suggestion of keeping your songbook with you. Use your own little psalter or big psalter, and just write the key signature in, and you'll be able to. You won't ever have to worry about it the next time. Okay, those are key signatures. Now, part of the reason I want you to figure out the key signature and not just give the starting pitch is that you want to give people a sense of the key that you're singing in the way that you introduce the song, the way that you get people started. And the way that I usually do that is by humming the triad, either the major or minor triad, and I'll explain what that means in a moment, of the key of that first chord that we're going to start on, and that gives everybody a sense of home, a sense of where we're starting and where we're going to come back to at the beginning and end of the tune. And so I want you to understand what this idea of a triad is, of a major triad, so that I think this is a helpful way of helping people get a sense of where we're going to be singing in this psalm. So on page 5 of the Shawnee booklet, you might want to have that open in front of you to page 5 there. But actually, I'm not going to do anything with that right at the moment. I want to get into this idea of what a major triad is, okay? So the major triad is the consists of 3 notes. That's why it's called a triad, right? And it consists of a root, a third, and the fifth. Okay? So it consists of a root, a third, and a fifth. So the reason we call it the root, the third, and the fifth is I'll try to demonstrate that here. Okay, so let's say we're talking about C, which is what the example is in that diagram there. So if we're in the key of C, then the major scale is goes like this, okay? Right? So we're going C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? Da, 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 da. And so we refer to these, in music, we refer to these notes in the scale by numbers as well. As if the letters aren't confusing enough, these are numbers as well. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. And so in the major triad, you use the root, the third, and the fifth, right? That's what I have there. I have C, E, and G, right? So it's C is the first note in the scale, da, 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 and then we want an E, da, dum, and we want the G, so da, 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 dum. And that sound, da, 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 dum, probably sounds pretty familiar. It's a pretty typical thing in Western music, right? Da, 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 dum. That's because that's a major triad. That's what we would sometimes call just a major chord, is those 3 notes. And what we do what many presenters do, what I was taught growing up and what the presenters did in my home congregation growing up, is to sing the major triad of the key that we're singing in. So if we're singing in the key of C, you hum the 3 notes of the major triad, and then you stop on the note that you're going to start on. Because almost every psalm, I think every single psalm in the Psalter starts on one of the notes of the major or minor triad. They start on one of the notes of the triad of the key that you're singing in. And that's a standard thing all through the Psalter, that you start on one of these 3 notes. And that's a really handy thing. There are other kinds of music that are more complicated, and good thing we're doing psalm singing. So by humming these notes, you're giving people a sense of the key as well as the starting note. So just as an example, if you have your Psalter, look at 85B. Okay, 85B is in the key of C, right? No flats, no sharps. The piano player's best friend. And what note does it start on? 85B.
The G, which would be the fifth.
Right, the G, right? So we're up here. What note does it end on?
Ends on E.
On E, which is a little unusual. Most tunes actually end back on the root, back on C. But it's still one of these three notes, right? And so tunes in the Psalter are without almost any exceptions. Just thought of one. Each verse will end on the root, the third, or the fifth. And this gets at what I often talk about, the key being your sense of home. This giving people a sense of what key you're singing in is telling them where home is, because tunes, generally speaking, especially psalm tunes, but a lot of music starts at home, and you go somewhere, you kind of go on a journey, you create some tension, and then you resolve that tension and come back home. And people may not even realize that, and they may not know why you're humming these three notes, but because every tune starts and ends on this triad for the key that you're singing in, you want to give people a sense of that by humming that triad to start with. So another one in the key of C would be 72A. If you go to 72A, what note does 72A start on?
C.
C. That's nice and easy. And then what does it end on?
C.
Back on C, right? But you'll also notice, if you look down, what are the notes in the bass and the tenor on 72A?
D and E.
C and E, right? And so here you actually don't have a G at all, but everybody, all four parts, are singing one of these three notes at the beginning of the tune and at the end of the tune. And so the point of giving this triad, of humming this triad, is to give people that sense of where they're starting and where they're going to come back to. And I've often had people come to me and say, why do you hum those notes? It's not the tune we're actually singing. And I'm sensitive to that. I think there's another way to do this is to hum part of the tune, which I know some people do.
That's what we usually do.
And that's fine. And that's another good way to give people a sense of what you're doing. But I like doing the triad because I don't even think people realize that it is helping them more than they realize. It's giving them a sense of home in a helpful, what I think is a helpful way. So let's look at a couple examples of this. You might want to have, I guess when I made reference to page 5 of the Shawnee booklet, and Noah, I think I saw you chatted there that you need a copy of the booklet. I can't get it to you right now. I'll get it to you after this. Page 5 has another explanation of that idea of the third and the fifth and all that. But if you turn to page 6, and let's keep those key signatures in front of us and those notes in front of us, and we'll just try 3. I'll give you 3 psalms, examples of 3 psalms, and then I want you guys to try. So somebody give me a psalm number.
132.
Okay, I heard 132A. 132A.
I think that's actually minor.
That's minor. And it actually changes in the middle. No good. Sorry.
43B. I'll go with my son's favorite.
43B. That's good. All right. Thank you, Drew. Okay, 43B. So if you look, there's 2 sharps. And so 2 sharps is the key of D, right? We take that far to the right sharp and go up a little bit. That gives you D. And so the triad for D major. Hold on here. Maybe we'll try to demonstrate this. Okay, so D is your root, then it's F sharp and A, right? Those are your 3, that's your first, third, and fifth. Because you skip a note in between each one, first, third, and fifth. So I know it's going to start on one of those 3, and I look and I see, okay, it doesn't start on D, but it does start on F sharp, right? It starts on the third. Okay, so if I Get my pitch pipe out here. If I was gonna sing hum the triad, I would go. So I go up the triad and then I come back down to the note I want to start on. So I go. Okay, so let's do another one. Somebody give me another psalm.
Brian, could I ask a question real
Sure.
quick?
Yes. Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So actually, you don't have to figure out what the triad is in the terms of the names of the notes. You just need to figure out what the intervals are between the three notes. That it's a perfect third.
Yep.
And okay, that's helpful because I don't remember, the names of the notes in every key.
Right. No, and that's a good point. So if you learn just in your head of what intervals, so you go do a major third up to the third, and then a minor third up to the fifth, or just think of the fifth as a perfect fifth from the first note. Da da. If you know the sound of da da, that's that major third. Da 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 da. Right. And if you just have that in your head, and if you know, okay, you figure out, okay, I'm in the key of D, and then you just look to see, okay, which one is it relative? Is it about a third up or is it about a fifth? You don't have to remember names of notes and stuff like that. You just need to know, am I going up to the middle part of that chord or the top of that chord?
Yeah, it helps. I don't know if anyone else has the same sort of brain that I do. Probably not, but it helps me to think in terms of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and if I can hear that, then I know that the perfect third is going to be mi.
Yep.
And the perfect fifth is going to be from do to so.
To so. Yep.
And so I can get those three notes. Then I think I could do that.
And
I think also everyone has like kind of a sense of, if you've got your first note, you kind of have a sense of what the major triad is, because I'm taking like an AP music theory class and they're like, well, here we're going to throw all of these weird chords at you that aren't major. And so even if I didn't know what notes were in the triad, I could hear that it wasn't major. I could hear that it was minor or diminished or something. So, like, if someone gave me a note, da, I could go da, da, da. And if I did something else, it would be weird, and I'd be like, this isn't a major triad.
Right. So the good news is, in Western music, a major chord like this, major triad, is what you're going to hear the vast majority of the time. It's a sound we're really used to. Da, 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 dum. And as some of you have learned solfa, where you go do, mi, so, mi, do. And that could be really helpful if you're used to doing that. There are lots of different ways to come at this, but you just want to get this idea of the sound of the da 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 dum in your heads, and hopefully that'll give you some options there. Okay, we had a suggestion of 36A. Let's look at 36A. So I've got one flat. What was Maria's trick for one flat? Anybody remember what key that is?
Key of F.
Key of F, right? So it's key of F, and so that means our key, our triad is going to start on F, then we go up, we basically skip the line, and we have an A, and then we skip a line again, and we have a C, right? So we know that the starting note's going to be either an F, an A, or a C, right? And this time, what note is it that we start on? It's an F, okay? So I would get an F on my pitch pipe. So I would hum. So I go up the major triad and back down. Or you can just go. But somehow you want to give them that sense of that major triad. Okay, let's do a couple here and let you guys try. There was another one. What did Drew?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Another trick that I don't know why, but it works in the Psalter almost all the time, is the last bass note is usually the key that it's in.
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have said that. Yes. Thank you,
I
Maria.
just read that in the Shawnee booklet, and I was like, I did not know that.
Yeah, this is genius. This is key. So in the Psalter, I think in every single case, the final bass note, the lowest note on the bottom right corner of your page, is going to be the key note, the key signature note as well. So that's a nice way of kind of cheating, but it actually works really well. And that's going to be key when we get to minor keys, because that's actually how anyway, we'll get to that next week. But that's a really great trick. The very last note in the bass is the key note as well. Okay, let's try. Drew, you suggested something there. What psalm was that?
Well, that was just a suggestion for if you're having trouble figuring out the intervals. That if you know 47A, if you don't know 47A, it's not very helpful. But if you know how it starts, or 23C starts, that it starts with the interval 1, 3, 5 as the first three.
Right. Okay. So all nations clap your hands for joy. Da da dum. There's your major triad, right? Da da dum.
Actually, that's a seventh, because it goes up to the seventh, too.
Da da da. Well,
Yeah, it gives you the full octave.
it goes you all the way up to the octave, actually. Da 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 da.
Oh, is
Right.
it's the eighth? No.
Yeah, it goes all the way up to the octave. Yep. Okay, so that's a good example. But let's actually look at that one. So 47A, you've got two sharps there. So who can tell me what key signature we're in? Two sharps. Well, we got to wrap
D?
things up here. What'd you say?
If it's two sharps, it's D.
That's correct. It's in the key of D, okay? So if our key is D, then we're going to start on D and go up to either an F sharp or an A. So which note does it start on?
Go see.
It starts on the tone.
Right, on the tonic, right on the
Yeah,
first
that's hard, yeah.
the first note, on the D itself, right? So who wants to try humming what you would hum if you're using my method? Or this method I'm teaching? If you were going to hum the triad, if you're starting here, all right, let me actually get a real D for you because they're not throwing anybody off. Oh, it is D. So this is your D. Can somebody hum what you would hum to give people the triad
I
here?
can do it.
Go ahead.
It'd go da 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 or da 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 da. If you want to do that.
Yep, there you go. So, right? Okay. I think we've got to wrap it up there, and I'll go through here your practice and your random tips. But I guess real quick, are there questions on what we've been covering so far?
Can we look at one that starts on a fifth but low?
Yeah, that's a good example. I think 118A would be like that. Okay, 118A is also in the key of D, so we're going to stay here. But if you notice, the first note is down here. All right, so it's not, it doesn't look like it's part of the triad, but it actually is. Why? So it's not part of these three, it's not one of these three notes, but is it kind of one of these three notes?
It's an octave lower.
It's an octave lower, right? So it's still an A, it's just not the A up here. So the way, when I do this one, I usually just go, I'm not even able to sing in that low A. I have zero bass range, but, right? So I would go, Sometimes I'll go up and do the third to give people a sense of whether it's major or minor. So go, but I usually just go, I sing the root and then down to the fifth. That's all I usually do. So you start on the home note, you go down to the low note. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm throwing the first few weeks here. I'm throwing all the information at you, and we're gonna have more time for practice and thinking about these things going forward. Okay, for practice this week, there's some great exercises on page 5 of your Shawnee booklet, and I saw somebody did share the booklet in the chat. If anybody's missing it, I think Maria shared it there, so you guys should be able to access it there if you don't have it. So on page 5, there's a bunch of examples for you to try figuring out if the notes, if the psalm starts on the root, the third, or the fifth, on the first, the third, or the fifth. So each of the psalms on the right fits into one of the spaces on that same row over on the left. So try out doing all those, and it'll really give you some good practice. Some great exercises provided by Ron there. Also, I would encourage you to sit down with your Psalter at some point this week, and without trying to sing anything, just sit down and try to determine the key signature for a whole bunch of psalms in a row. And just sit down and do that for a while. And you can even write them in if you're trying to help yourself out later. But you'll start to see there's a lot of the same key signatures. There's a lot of A flat, there's a lot of E flat, there's a lot of C, a lot of D, a lot of F. There's some of them you'll very rarely see. And so that's the good news, is there are just a few that really need to start recognizing. So sit down and maybe...
You won't find any psalms in C sharp major.
No, thankfully you won't find anything in C sharp major. So there aren't that many you're going to have to learn. So just go through and maybe do a dozen of them, or 15, and just do a whole bunch in a row, and you'll start getting a sense of which key signatures are more typical. A couple of... Oh, go ahead.
G is fairly common as well.
Yes, you'll see a lot of G as well. Yep. Okay, a couple of random tips for the week. It is appropriate to reflect the emotion of the psalm that you're singing on your face while you're presenting. Don't go overboard on this. Don't be fake about it. The best way to do this is to understand what you're singing and to sing it from your heart to the Lord, and then you will have an expression of joy in your face, or you will have an expression of grief on your face. It's not just appropriate to have the right emotion. It may be inappropriate to have the wrong emotion on your face. And there have been times I've seen someone up there just swinging their arm away, and they're smiling up a storm, and it's not a happy psalm. That's just not what it is. Or more often, I see someone just with the glummest face in the world, and they're singing "All Nations Clap Your Hands for Joy." So try to, again, don't just try to be fake. Don't be fake about this, but try to sing with the appropriate emotion. Also,
these tips are really good reminders, because that's what I tend to like. I just tend to like drop all emotion
right.
when I do it.
And emotionless often looks sad, or like a straight face often looks angry or sad to people. So you kind of have to make a bit of an effort on those joyful psalms. Okay, another thing, try to make eye contact with the congregation as you're presenting. It's sort of this psychological thing where if you're not looking at them, they don't think they need to look at you. And so if you're making eye contact with people and without, again, not trying to make this awkward or make it about you at all, the idea is you're in this together. You're trying to say, okay, we're doing this together, and I'm looking out at you, and you should be looking at me, and we're going to stay together, and it really helps if you're looking out at people while you do this. Also, and this is especially important when you're starting and when you're stopping. And this is hard. For a long time, I could never look at anything but the page when I was starting, because I was trying to think about all these things I needed to do. But if you can get to the point where you can look at the page and you know what your first couple of words are, you know what your first couple of notes are, then look at the congregation and start while you're looking at them. And that will really help people come along with you, instead of having trying to do this and have people not even be able to see your face very well. So that's just a couple of tips there. I've gone over time again. Any questions today? Any final questions? All right, we're going to keep working on this. We're going to have more opportunities for practice in future weeks. So good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us in this little bit different format today, and have a good rest of your Lord's Day, unless you're in Australia.